everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you a recent reads video. So it has been a week since I last did a recent reads video and checked in with you guys. I have completed 9 books since I last did a recent reads video. The first 5 are the books that I completed in the last few days of July, and then the other 4 are the first 4 that I've completed so far in the first couple of days of August. So let's jump straight in and talk about all of the books. So the first one that I completed since I last checked in is Where the Heart Is by Billy Letts. This is a adult contemporary fiction. We basically follow a woman named Nova Lee, who at the start of the novel, she's 17 and she is traveling with her boyfriend across country. She's 7 months pregnant at the time, and he basically leaves her at a Walmart. She gets out to use the bathroom and he takes off and just dumps her there. She doesn't know what to do. She has no money. I think she has like $7, and she ends up living in the Walmart secretly. She lives there for 2 months until she gives birth to her baby. When she gives birth to her baby, she's discovered, and she ends up kind of living in this town connected to the where the Walmart is, and it's basically all about the life that she lives after that with her child and the people that she meets, and you know, all of that type of thing. I really enjoyed this. As I've mentioned, I have seen the movie of this. This is the movie tie-in cover, so it stars Natalie Portman and Ashley Judd. I've seen the movie and I've always really enjoyed the movie, and I really liked the book as well. It's just your heartwarming type of contemporary read. It's very kind of found family and about the people who you meet who accept you for who you are, despite the fact that they're not your blood, and who help you and take you in and all of that type of thing. It's just very heartwarming, special feeling type of novel that I quite enjoyed, and I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. I then read Remember Me by D.E. White. This is a book that I received a digital copy in exchange, a free digital copy in exchange for an honest review through NetGalley. So this is a thriller novel. It's basically about a woman who is a police detective in the LAPD, but she grew up in Wales. And she returns to Wales where she grew up, and there is her best friend went missing when she was a teenager, but she knows that she didn't actually go missing. She knows that her best friend is dead, and that her and the group of friends that she had covered up that she died in this tragic circumstances through this like game that they were all playing and drinking, doing drugs, playing stupid dare games, and her friend died and they covered it up. And it's all about that and discovering the secrets of the past and what actually went on back then. And there's chapters, points of view of this person who is kind of driving the game, that remembers her from the past and has always kept tabs on her and is a creepy individual. I didn't super love this book, if I'm being perfectly honest. It had a lot of potential. I love a story about someone returning to their hometown where they grew up in order to... Oh, hi, Giles. Giles has been hiding for the past hour because my dad came around to mow my lawns, and Giles is terrified of anyone who isn't me. And he could hear that someone else was here, and so he's been hiding, but he's just come out of hiding. Hi, baby. Oh, now he's going to scratch the scratching post and just make for a really great sounding video. So it had a lot of potential. It's got someone returning to the area where they grew up, secrets from the past, all of that, which I really enjoy. But I just didn't really like it. I didn't engage that much with the main character or any of the characters really. I did really like the setting. So it's set in Wales in the winter, in quite a rural area in Wales. Really liked that. The setting was great. But I didn't find the story engaging at all. I also thought the story was quite predictable. I didn't really enjoy the chapters that were from the perspective of like a villain type character. Didn't enjoy that. I just thought it was kind of boring, honestly. It was okay. I liked the setting, but it was kind of boring, a bit predictable. It just was nothing great. In the end, I gave it just 3 stars. I then read Patrick Swayze, One Last Dance by Wendy Lee. So this is a biography of Patrick Swayze written by Wendy Lee. This was actually published prior to Patrick Swayze's death. I think this was published, I can tell you, in 2009. So I think Patrick Swayze died shortly after this book was published. And as I was reading this novel, so it's just a lot about his whole life, obviously, from when he was born, growing up in Texas, how he became a movie star, and how, my cats, you guys, how being a movie star affected his life, etc. I got all the way through this book, so it's not super long, to be fair. It's about 200 and just over 200 pages. Oh my god, the cats. It's just over 200 pages, and I read the whole thing, and then when you get to the author's note, or whatever it's called at the end, you realize, and it makes sense once you get to that point, that Wendy Lee didn't even interview Patrick Swayze. And she says that she had always planned to like ask for an interview, but then by the time that she got to the point of wanting to interview him, he was suffering with cancer. And so she didn't feel that it was appropriate, and so she didn't. So, which I understand, but this book is literally just a collection of articles and quotes and things that you can find online. She did interview some people from his past, but not anyone particularly connected to him, just some like childhood people, like childhood friends of his. So I found some parts of it interesting, like the parts from his past, like things about his upbringing that I didn't know. But it's really, you don't find out that much about him, because there's nothing from him. It's all speculation and hearsay, so to speak. So I just don't think this was a particularly well done biography. I did realize after reading this that Patrick Swayze himself wrote his own memoir together with his wife, which they published. So I would like to pick that up and read that instead, because obviously you're going to get a lot more insight into him told by him. So yeah, I just didn't think this was particularly well done. I do love Patrick Swayze. Some of the stuff I found interesting because I didn't know necessarily a lot about his background, but I just don't think it was that well of a done of a biography, and I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. I then listened on audio to Gunslinger Girl by Lindsay Ely. So this is a dystopian futuristic novel that is set in the United States, where there has been a second civil war, which has put the United States back into like a Wild Wild West type of setting. So Giles Tale. So I thought the setting was interesting, but one of the problems that I had with it is that the world is not well developed at all. I'll get into that more in a second. So I guess I should tell more what it's about. So it's set in that setting. We follow a main character named Serendipity, who goes by Pity, who is a gunslinger. She inherited her mother's guns, and she ends up escaping from the like settlement or whatever where she grew up, because she's going to be sold into a marriage, and she goes to this big kind of town full of outlaws and all of that. So as I said, it sounds like a really interesting premise, and it could have been. The world is just not established very well at all. We don't get any background as to the Civil War, what happened, what caused the Civil War, what happened as a result of the Civil War, why the world is the way that it is now. We're just told this is the setting and that's that. And then as soon as she travels from kind of where she grew up to and ends up in this kind of like outlaw town or city or whatever, we don't see that much of the actual Wild West part of the story. So I just thought it was not as well done as it could have been in terms of the setting. So I thought it had so much potential that just like kind of the potential was never met. I did think that the main character was like, you know, cool, fun, spunky kind of character. Nothing overly, you know, new to the genre or anything, but she was fun to read from. I liked that the main love interest was different from your typical kind of character. He had piercings and dyed hair and all of that, which I liked, because, you know, we get so many of your typical male love interests in YA novels. The other problem that I had with it is that there are too many characters. Once we get to this like outlaw city or whatever it is that she's in, There are a lot of side characters, and at first it didn't really bother me because they're not huge parts of the story. But then at the end, when everything's coming to a head and there's this huge kind of confrontation and conflict, and all of the characters are mentioned at different points, and I was like, wait, which one's that and which one's that? And I was like, I can't remember who's who anymore of the side characters. So that left me a little bit confused. But for the main part, it was an enjoyable, fun story. Nothing amazing, but it was enjoyable enough. I ended up giving it 3.25 stars. I then read, so the final book that I read in the month of July was Push by Sapphire. This is another book that I've previously seen the movie of. The movie's called Precious, and I saw that movie years ago and had put it on my to-read list as a book that I wanted to read when I watched the movie. So this is a story about a African-American girl growing up in very poor circumstances, in Harlem, in New York, she's a terrible life. She first was pregnant, had her first baby at 12, pregnant by her father. She had a baby at 12. The baby was born with severe mental disabilities, and she never really saw the baby, has anything to do. She sees the baby. She doesn't really have that much to do with it. Her grandmother ends up taking the baby. Her grandmother doesn't live with them. The baby's just given to the grandmother. So the grandmother takes care of it. And she doesn't really have anything to do with it. She's now, at the time of the novel, 16 and is pregnant again by her father. And she's sexually abused by her father since she was 3, I believe we established in the story, 2 or 3. It's awful. Obviously, huge trigger warnings for sexual abuse. She is also sexually abused by her mother throughout the story. She then also discovers that as a result of the continued sexual abuse and rape by her father, that she is HIV positive. It is harrowing, absolutely harrowing. This isn't a memoir, it is a fictional story, but obviously there are many people who have grown up in this type of environment and upbringing, which is the purpose of the story, and it is extremely harrowing. It's an important story to be told. The issues that I had with the novel is it's told a lot in dialect. So Precious, the main character, is incredibly uneducated, and a big part of the story is about her journey to try become more educated, which is great. It's, like I said, it's an important story, but a lot of the book is told in her dialect, and I think that might be the case a little bit in the movie as well, that she talks in a particular way. But when you're hearing it, it's a lot easier to pick up the dialect, and when you're reading it on the page, it is very jarring because it's just a very uneducated type of language. It was very hard to read. It was very hard to get through. And then the story is awful, so it's hard to get through in that respect as well. I will also say the language is trigger warnings for the abuse, but also trigger warnings just for the language. The way that the abuse is described is very graphic words. It's really awful. So I think it's an important story to be told, but I didn't enjoy myself. I'm mainly an enjoyment-based reader, and I feel like I would have liked this a lot better if it was just told in a more narrative style without all of the dialect. I understand the purpose of it, but it just wasn't an enjoyable way to read a story for me, so I ended up giving it just a 3-star rating. So there's that. So now moving on to the books that I read in August. So the first thing that I completed was The Woods Volume 2 by James Tynion IV. This is the second volume in a science fiction graphic novel that's basically about, there was this high school, and the entire high school that was from Milwaukee. The entire high school is all of a sudden transported to another planet. The entire school, all of the students, teachers, everything, they're just all of a sudden on this other planet. And the planet is kind of like a forest planet, like there's this crazy forest with crazy creatures and everything like that in there. And so that's the story that we're following. I quite enjoyed this edition, this volume. We get a lot more backstory on the characters. There's a lot of good diversity in here as well. We've got like LGBT characters, lots of different races, things like that. We also get a lot more understanding kind of the planet a little bit more. So I quite enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 3.25 stars. The only issue I have now is that I realized once I finished it that my library only has the first 2 volumes. I think there are 7 total. something like that. My library doesn't have any past the first 2, so I'm not sure if I'm going to get to continue on with this because I don't love it enough to purchase it, and graphic novels are expensive. They're like $20 a volume, and I'm not willing to spend that money on a graphic novel that's only like a 3.5 star series, so I'm not sure if I'll get to continue with it, but I did read it and I did enjoy it. The next book that I completed was another audio book that I listened to, which was Holding Up the Universe by Jennifer Niven. This one is narrated on audio by Georgiana Marie and Robbie Damond. This is a YA contemporary, which was kind of controversial when it was released because it follows two main characters. The female main character was previously known as the world's fattest teen. She was about 600 pounds, and she is famous because she got trapped in her house and had to be removed. Like, she had a medical issue and had to be lifted out of her house. It had to like knock out part of her house and lift her out of the house in a crane. And it is now a year or so, whatever, after that incident. She's still extremely overweight. She's 300 pounds. She still describes herself as a fat character. And she's going back. She was obviously stuck in home when she was that large, and she's now going back to high school. We also follow a main male character. Giles is here chewing on my foot. A main male character who has a disability, which means that he can't recognize faces. As soon as he looks away from you, he'll completely forget your face. So he has to use other identifiers to try to recognize people. Like, you know, that this person has, you know, brown curly hair and their voice and things like that. He tries to remember so that he can remember who people are. And people don't know that he has this disability. He keeps it a secret, including from his family. Trigger warnings in this for fat shaming, I'll say as well. So I remember this book getting really terrible reviews when it came out. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, oh, this isn't as bad as like what people say that it is. And so, but then we got to the end of the book and then I had some real problems. So, I mean, I can understand what the author was trying to achieve. She's trying to have a book about acceptance and character growth and people finding themselves and being okay with themselves, but it wasn't necessarily handled in the best way. I had a problem with that the main female character is so focused on getting a boyfriend, and that she makes a joke the whole time about sex is a way that you can burn calories, and she's gonna lose the rest of the weight by like sexing it off, which is like, it's kind of a joke, but she's so focused on like romance like throughout the story, which I had a bit of a problem with because I'm much more about self-love. So it didn't, and also the characters are quite shallow. There is some character growth, but then there's something that happens at the end, which I can't say without spoiling it, that I had a massive problem with. And most of the other reviews of like hate reviews didn't even comment on this, but it's the main thing that really, really, really bothered me about the story. So I ended up just not really enjoying it at all, and I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. However, the next audiobook that I read was a vast improvement. I read Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, which is narrated on audio by Ramon D. Ocampo. This is a new adult male-male romance between the first son of the United States, so he's the president's son, and the Prince of Wales. This book has been super hyped on BookTube. Super, super, super hyped. And it's worth every bit of hype in my opinion. So the main male character, the book's told from the perspective of the President of the United States' son, Alex. So the president, it's just such great, I wish this was how the world was. We have a female United States president who is divorced. Her children she's white, but her children are of mixed race. Her husband that she was mentioned, her children are half Mexicans. Alex, the main character, is half Mexican. Alex is bisexual. The main male love interest is gay. So there's just all kinds of great diversity. The relationship was so freaking adorable. I cannot even handle how great this romance was. I really loved the romance and the relationship. So it's kind of I haven't even really told you what it's technically about in the plot. So the President of the United States and the Prince Alex and Henry, that's their names. I'm just going to call them by their names. Alex and Henry are enemies. They don't like each other, so on. And there's a kind of international incident. They're at a wedding and they have this incident, and it causes an issue in like the public relations between the two countries, particularly because the president is going to be up for re-election. And so, I'm sorry about all the cattail in this video. They are forced to pretend that they're the best of friends, that they had a reconciliation, they're actually friends, there's no incident between them, to make sure that relations between the country and all of that are all okay. So it's kind of a hate to friends with benefits, to lovers, to relationship, to whatever. It is just so freaking adorable. And I loved it. I loved the romance. Like I said, I loved all the side characters, all of the side relationships. I loved this setting of a world where we've got a female president. There seems to be, it's not vastly different from today's world, but it just seemed like there was so much more acceptance in the novel than what we have today. Obviously, I don't live in the United States, but the United States politically is not great. Let's just be real. So it was a great setting. The main complaints I saw from people on Goodreads who didn't like this book was that they thought there was too much politics stuff in there. Yes, you're going to get that because it is about international relations between two countries and it's the son of the president, but I loved this book. It was so great, so enjoyable. I enjoyed the absolute heck out of this book, and I gave it 5 stars. I freaking real enjoyed it. And the final book that I have read over this past week was Written in Red by Anne Bishop. This is the first book in the Others series. So the Others series is a urban fantasy, or like soft fantasy. It's set in our world, but in this world there is a split between humans and the others. And the others are all kinds of different creatures. It includes werewolves, vampires, and then like other supernatural creatures as well. And they are, relations between the humans and the others are not great. And the others, the thing I liked about the others is that they are actual brutal, like the werewolves will just like kill people and they don't care and they eat people, and the vampires and all of that, like all of these creatures are just not that fussed on humans and will do whatever the heck they want. They're not nice fluffy versions of them, which I really enjoyed. The main plot that we're following is we follow a main character named Meg, who is a human, but she is a blood prophet. Blood prophets are incredibly rare and they're incredibly valuable. When their skin is cut, they see prophecies. And so Meg has escaped. At the start of this novel, we know that she's escaped from somewhere she was being held, and she goes to this kind of settlement, like a town. It's not, settlement makes it sound like it's in the middle of, it's a town that is run by others, and she seeks refuge in this town. And it just kind of follows that story. Obviously trigger warnings for self-harm, because it deals with blood prophecies. This was really enjoyable. I loved the world and the setting. The author does a really great job of building it up. I've only touched on exactly how it works and politically and all of that, but the author does a really great job of building it all up. Right at the start of the novel, you get quite a lot of, so you get information about the different land masses and the different things in the world. You also get the days of the week. Like the days of the week aren't even like Monday, Tuesday. It's like Earth Day, Moon's Day, Sun's Day, Wind's Day, Thigh's Day, Fire's Day, Water's Day, things like that. You then get a map of the different areas that the book like deals with. And then you also, right at the start, kind of almost like a prologue before you get to the chapters, you get this few pages about a brief history of the world, which is really good too, which kind of takes you through humans and others and how they've got to be where they are and the conflicts kind of between them, etc., which was really great. So I loved the world, loved all the characters. This is quite slow. There's not a lot happening in like the kind of middle part of the story, and then the end is incredibly action-packed. But I really enjoyed it. I think it's very enjoyable. So I enjoyed the world. I enjoyed all of the characters. There's a potential romance blossoming in this, which I think is maybe blossoming. I have heard that this has got an incredibly slow burn romance, and I'm not sure if it's slow burn in that it's actually a romance, or it's slow burn in that we just keep hoping it's going to be a romance and then maybe it doesn't eventuate. I don't know, but I'm hopeful that there's going to be a romance in future books. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it, and I gave this a 4-star rating. So that's it. Those are all of the books that I have read over the past week. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if you've got any thoughts on them, or I'd love to chat with you guys about what you've been reading and liking, or reading and hating, or just what you've been reading in general. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye guys.